Thank you to Seven Bridges. I think you guys got to watch along while we were in there. That was a really fascinating presentation on living environment in the 8th grade, and they have certainly made biology more interesting than when I took it a million years ago. So that's really exciting, and thank you to our students and our faculty at 7B. We're going to move on now to the president's report. And bear with me, I know I'm not like fun to listen to right now, but I'll get through this as quickly as I can. So good evening, and as this is our last meeting of this calendar year, I want to provide some status updates on where we are on some issues that we've been working on and some procedures, and forecast a little bit about what will happen come January. I know that many in our community members have been interested in the issue of electric school bus conversion. And I'm excited to note that there's a contract, which I'm sure that Josh Kohlblock is going to discuss in more detail with us, with a company to help us work on that conversion, with Chappaqua Transportation as our partner, on the agenda tonight. As anyone who has looked into this issue knows, this is complicated, much more complicated than switching out your family car for an electric one. So I'm very happy to be bringing assistance on board on that issue. I want to also update you on the literacy review. As you know, we sent out an RFP, a request for proposals, to conduct that review for us. Short story is that we as a board did not think that any of the proposals we received adequately met our needs to ensure that our program is meeting all of our children's needs. So we've reopened that RFP and hope to have a wider array of experts to speak with, and hopefully select one who can give us the evaluation of our program that we seek. As you know, we've rolled out office hours with the board this year. While overall I think this has been quite positive, there have definitely been some glitches around the sign-up process, and generally there are ways that we can make the whole system work better. So as we told you we would, we're going to regroup and brainstorm how to make the process work better for the community, and if there's ways to make some of these conversations more productive once we're in the room. We will do that over the next few weeks and keep you posted on the next dates for office hours. I do want to say, though, that overall I have found, and I hope my fellow board members agree, that these are quite productive and encourage community members to take advantage of them. They provide the opportunity for us to have a conversation around issues that we cannot in the context of a board meeting, and you are every bit as heard in that context. We're trying to find more and better ways for the community to communicate with us, and this one overall seems to be a positive. If you have suggestions on how to make the process better, please send us an email and let us know. I want to reiterate that you can always send us an email or set up a time to talk outside of office hours with any of us. We have all over the past weeks and months had many, many conversations, most of which I believe have been good ones. Additional opportunities to interact with us will also help us if we find ourselves in a place where we need to reevaluate our board policy on public comment. We've gotten, understandably, a lot of questions around public comment since our last meeting, and I want to try to answer some of them. Right now, our board policy is quite permissive when it comes to public comment, because we believe it is important for the community to be able to bring issues of concern to us. Our only limits right now are on time and the use of identifying information, which is the language I will read a little bit later on in this meeting. As a public body, we must be viewpoint neutral, and under New York State open meetings law, anybody is welcome to attend our meetings. That is not something we can change. However, as long as we remain viewpoint neutral, we can limit public comment. So for example, we could eliminate public comment altogether. Many school districts do not allow it. We don't believe that's in the best interest of the community or the district. Another option available to us is to limit public comments to items on the agenda, meaning a community member could only make a public comment if it pertains to something on our agenda for that evening, and other issues or concerns would have to come to us by phone or email. We have discussed our options with our attorney. At this moment in time, we believe it is in the best interest of the district to leave our public comment period open. But if moving forward this creates an unsafe environment, we will have to revisit that decision. I want to also update you on what we've done and are doing since the last meeting around both our curriculum around the Middle East and anti-Semitism. And I also want to be careful not to conflate the two, but acknowledge that we've received a lot of questions and feedback around both, and that a lot of the work we've done around resource gathering and research has overlapped. Dr. Ackerman is going to speak fairly extensively on what the administrative team has been working on, and I'm going to speak to what the board has been working on. Again, there's going to be a lot of overlap, but we serve in different roles, and we've had some different conversations. I want to start by taking a bird's eye view for a moment and talk about the board's role in curriculum. As a rule, we are an oversight entity and do not get involved in most curriculum decisions. That would simply not be appropriate and is not our role. We are involved when there's a major curricular shift, new curriculum is adopted, or when a major question or concern is raised around an aspect of our curriculum. That's what happened regarding our curriculum around the Middle East. After Dr. Pease and his team delivered the webinar, we received a lot of feedback on many areas of concern, but a prevalent one was around the Brown Choices program, particularly on the content on the Middle East. Having read the feedback from our community, I spent a good chunk of a weekend diving into the website and the materials and videos, the overwhelming majority of which our students never see, but I wanted to understand what is out there. Having done that, I share some of the concerns around bias in the materials and perspective, and I wrote an email to the director of the Choices program, which I am happy to share if anyone is interested. The response I received leads me to believe that while the level of scholarship within the program is very high, I think it needs to be balanced out with differing perspectives. Sourcing the balanced perspective on the same level of scholarship is part of the administration's ongoing work. Likewise, on how we teach and address anti-Semitism in our schools, we have had ongoing meetings with leaders of Jewish congregations on how to best support our students and families. And let me be clear, we are happy to meet with any faith-based leader who wants to meet with us. We will be adopting a board resolution defining anti-Semitism in a few minutes. I also had a very long, very helpful Zoom with Myra Clark-Siegel at the AJC, the American Jewish Committee, about resources available to school districts to combat anti-Semitism. And many of us up here, both board members and administrators, went to a forum yesterday morning about combating anti-Semitism in school, sponsored by the Westchester Jewish Committee. It was a great opportunity to connect with a number of available resources, many of which are organizations with whom we already have longstanding relationships and partnerships. It was reassuring to hear that many of the recommendations are things we're already doing, and it was very helpful to hear guidance on additional things we can do or do better, and to have a list of entities that can help us do this work well. This was what we hoped the forum would offer, and it did. I also want to be completely clear that all of these organizations are committed to combating anti-Semitism and to doing it in diverse spaces. As one speaker said, this has to be content for people of all faiths and no faith to address the particular hate that is anti-Semitism, but to do it in a way that all of our students and faculty feel included and valued in the work, and that nobody is ever made to feel like an other. I also don't want anyone to feel like we've checked a box and are done. We're just trying to keep you informed on what we have done and are doing so far. We are committed to continuing to do this work and to do it well, and are happy to have connected with a number of great resources to help us moving forward. With that, we hope to be able to communicate a plan of action soon, and Dr. Ackerman will speak more to what that timeline will look like, where we are, and what we still need to do before we can do that. Our work needs to focus on what's going on in the schools. There are times such as now when world events impact what is going on in our schools. But in addressing them, our focus needs to be on how those events are manifesting in our buildings in an age-appropriate manner. There's a lot that's big and scary, and we're not going to be able to solve all of those issues. But we can focus on what's going on with our kids and in our buildings, and that has to be the focus of our efforts and our communications going forward. That said, I feel like I need to address some of the communication we've gotten over the last 2 months. This is my 5th year serving on this school board, and I have never received such nasty and vitriolic emails as I have in these last 2 months. Not all by any means, but enough that I feel I need to mention it. I've worked with a whole lot of administrators in my career before running for the BoE, and I can tell you that I have never worked with a team that is harder working or cares more about children in schools and doing the right thing. We as a district, and I say this as a parent of a school-age child, are incredibly lucky to have them. And speaking on behalf of the BoE, we are elected officials, elected volunteers, if you will, and to receive some of the emails that we did, including ones that either implied or said outright that we were trying to kill your kids, was incredibly hurtful. I don't know whether that was the intent or not. I know that a lot of this is coming from a place of fear. We understand that people are afraid. I am afraid too. But we ran for the school board because we care about your children and about education. We are your partners. We want to be your partners. Please trust us that this is our goal. Please reach out if you have concerns, suggestions, questions, but please also recognize that we are also human beings who are here and working very, very hard, often at the expense of our paying attention to our jobs and our families, to try to make our schools the best they can be for all of our children. We understand that parents want more communication from us, which we will try to do even if it's, like I'm saying now, this is where we are and what we're working on before we're done or have a full plan. Please, if you want this communication, take advantage of it. We're pushing out a lot, emails, webinars. Avail yourself of the information from primary sources before deciding it's not okay. One piece of feedback we've gotten is that we should hire an in-house communications expert, which candidly many districts have done and hired PR firms in-house. We've never felt like that's the best use of community funds, but please know that we're writing all of our communications, and if you think we've made a word choice that could have been better or put a comma in the wrong place, please give us the benefit of the doubt and bring it to us with an eye towards doing better next time, and please read to the end before assuming we've ignored your concerns. When we come back in January, it will be the start of the budgeting process. We welcome your input and feedback and questions as you tune into those meetings and understand how we come to a budget and what our challenges and limitations are. We've heard from a lot of people about priorities, and we're optimistic that we can craft a budget that will address priorities and concerns. We look forward to working in partnership with you on that. And really, if I can leave you with one thought to take out of this year and into the next one, it's that we really are here, all of us up here, to be your partners in your children's education. We want all of our children to feel safe, happy, supported, and successful. With that, I wish you a happy Hanukkah, a Merry Christmas, a joyous Kwanzaa, and a very happy, healthy, and hopefully peaceful New Year.
So I would like to, at this point, usually I present during the superintendent's report all of my information, but I thought it would be best for me to present our Middle East update now before the board acts on the anti-Semitism resolution. And that way, if there's any additional comments that we need to make on what I'm presenting or on the resolution, we can do it at this time. All right, so I want to begin by just sharing with you what the steps that the district has already taken. This is my second update to the Board of Education. So we've provided instructional and social emotional guidance for our staff. We've communicated out to our parents. We have had 2 district equity team meetings where we've discussed our next steps. We've completed 7 through 12 lessons on the Middle East. We've had separate high school and middle school parent communications from the principals. We've delivered hate speech lessons in our middle school and our high school. We had a parent webinar to discuss our curriculum and our review cycle, and we provided the opportunity for parents to provide us feedback. We've created 2 new policies to address outside presenters. They're on the agenda tonight for a second reading, not adoption. We have an anti-Semitism resolution for the board's consideration. We had our Unity Day student presenter, an expert to talk to all of our high school students on hate speech and hate symbols. We are running and currently are continuing to run Horace Greeley High School student focus groups. We have our Horace Greeley High School parent focus groups concluding tomorrow. We have developed a Jewish affinity space for our staff, which is open to all of our staff. And so now I want to talk about what our next steps are. So after our focus group process has concluded, Adam is leading discussions with our faculty and administration to review our student and parent feedback. And they will be meeting on December 20th at 9 o'clock with the Board of Education and the Academic Commons to share that feedback and their recommendations on how we should move forward with the curricular concerns that have been identified. We are going to host a K-8 parent forum with an expert presenter, as well as a Q&A period with district staff. We are going to provide an opportunity for focus groups with an outside consultant, K-12, for our families to come in and share with us some additional thoughts around what they feel like they need from us to support them and our children. We did that previously with Insight, and we are moving forward with a similar model as when we come back from holiday break. We are going to develop new policy language on how parents can raise curriculum concerns to the district. We are going to do anti-Semitism training for staff when we return in January. We are going to support a presentation for our high school students from the Human Rights Commission and Westchester County District Attorney's Office. And then we'll be in the position in January to adopt the new policies on guest speakers. I also want to share who we've been consulting with over the past 2 months. We have consulted with the ADL, the Westchester Human Rights Division, Insight Educational Group, local religious leaders, Westchester County District Attorney's Office. We've made outreach to the Brown Choices Program facilitator and received feedback from them based on our concerns. And then, as Hillary had just mentioned, a number of us attended the symposium addressing anti-Semitism and other forms of hate. Right, so then I have some nuanced information I want to share. In terms of the second reading for outside speakers, we received feedback from our students and from our parents and our focus groups that we were to add language that would include outside speakers need to align with the district's equity policy. And also we are adding language that defines what a guest speaker is in our policy, which are individuals who share their expertise with students. And then there's some language from that the PTA requested in terms of schedule coordination. So that's in the second reading, and that's new language. I also want to share that I know there's been outrage over the congressional hearings and the responses of the college presidents to questions about activities on their campus specific to hate speech and anti-Semitism and harassment. So I just want our community to be reassured. We have a policy in place that allows us to address that, whether it occurs on campus or off campus, and it impacts the school setting. And so we're not in the same position as college presidents. That would never be an answer that we would get. Our DASA policy allows us to address behavior that's inappropriate and hateful and not aligned with our equity policy. And you can be assured that we will do that to the fullest extent of the code of conduct if that were to occur in our school district or in outside spaces that would begin to impact what's happening in our buildings. And so at this time, I know I shared a lot of information. I wanted to offer the opportunity for the board to provide any additional comments before I ask David to pull up the anti-Semitism resolution for your consideration.
1.1.3 is the anti-Semitism resolution. Whereas the Board of Education of the Chappaqua Central School District, the board, is united with our administration, staff, and faculty in repudiating anti-Semitism. Whereas the board is resolute in its commitment to foster an environment free from anti-Semitism in our school district and our school community. Whereas the board believes that our students must be educated to recognize anti-Semitism and refrain from participating in its advancement. Whereas the board understands the importance of appropriate discourse in our classes that analyze global issues from multiple perspectives. Whereas the board recognizes the roles of educators and public education in molding future generations of citizens who will be informed, ethical, moral, engaged, and active participants in a civil society. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the board adopts the following definition of anti-Semitism to support the instructional and social-emotional goals identified in the district's equity policy and the district's educational philosophy. Anti-Semitism is a certain perception of Jews, which may be expressed as hatred towards Jews. Rhetorical and physical manifestations of anti-Semitism are directed towards Jewish or non-Jewish individuals and or their property, toward Jewish community institutions and religious facilities. And this definition is from the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance from 2016. It also adopts contemporary examples of anti-Semitism listed on the U.S. Department of State website, including calling for, aiding, or justifying the killing or harming of Jews in the name of a radical ideology or an extremist view of religion, making mendacious, dehumanizing, demonizing, or stereotypical allegations about Jews, such as, or the power of Jews as a collective, such as, especially but not exclusively, the myth about a world Jewish conspiracy or of Jews controlling the media, economy, government, or other societal institutions. Accusing Jews as a people of being responsible for real or imagined wrongdoing committed by a single Jewish person or group, or even for acts committed by non-Jews. Denying the fact, scope, mechanisms, example of gas chambers, or intentionality of the genocide of the Jewish people at the hands of the National Socialist Germany and its supporters and accomplices during World War II, the Holocaust. Accusing the Jews as a people or Israel as a state of inventing or exaggerating the Holocaust. Accusing Jewish citizens of being more loyal to Israel or to the alleged priorities of Jews worldwide than to the interests of their own nations. Denying the Jewish people their right to self-determination, for example, by claiming that the existence of a state of Israel is a racist endeavor. Applying double standards by requiring of it a behavior not expected or demanded of any other democratic nation. Using the symbols and images associated with classic anti-Semitism, for example, claims of Jews killing Jesus or blood libel to characterize Israel or the Israelis. Drawing comparisons of contemporary Israeli policy to that of the Nazis, and holding Jews collectively responsible for the actions of the State of Israel. And those, again, are taken directly from the U.S. Department of State website. Be it further resolved that the board recognizes that criticism of Israel's government, similar to that leveled against any other country's government, cannot be regarded as anti-Semitic. This resolution shall be noted along with the district's equity policy 0130. So at this time, and I know it's out of order because there are two other things that we are going to look at, but it probably makes sense to look at this out of order. Can I have a motion, please, for 1.1.3? Are there any questions, concerns, comments? All in favor of 1.1.3?
Aye.
So do you want us to then look at,
You have to do the revised Board of Education.
right, we are 1.1.1, I will move 1.1.1. Can I have a second? This is two minor revisions to the Board of Education calendar, not the school calendar. This is just our meeting calendar. We moved the May 8th meeting.
Yes.
Because we had to. And we moved the May 23rd meeting to the 22nd because we wanted to. So those are the two changes to the board meeting calendar. Again, not the school calendar. All in favor of 1.1.1?
Aye.
And then 1.1.2, we are not taking any action on. That is just, and Dr. Ackerman will address this in the superintendent's report, the draft calendar, the actual school calendar that affects you and your children, is up on the website and is open. If you have questions, concerns, comments, feel free to send us an email on that. We welcome feedback. And I think that's it for me.
Thank you, Hillary. And so, David, if you could pull my presentation back up again, I'll begin by talking about the calendar. And so at this meeting is often when I present the draft calendar to the Board of Education for consideration for the next school year. Can you move me? Because I'm going to have time on that. Thank you. All right, so I just want to go over, every year I go over how the calendar is developed so people have an understanding of what goes into the days that students have off versus the days that students are in session, and the start date and the end date. So the first thing that I want you to understand is that we have certain days that students are not allowed to be in attendance and our staff. And these are federal and state holidays. This is language right from regulation, and these are how they're labeled in these regulations. And so all of these days are days that school teachers and our students cannot be in session. Then I have to look at when the BoCES students are off. And I often try to align our break with BoCES because some of our high school students go there for half of their day because they're in a career and technical program. Then I have to make sure that our students are attending school for at least 180 days, and that our and that we are attending school until the last day as denoted by New York State. That's called the rating day. So sometimes I get questions from parents asking me why we can't end early. And the reason is New York State picks the end day around the grading schedule for the required state assessments. Then there's certain contractual obligations that we have with the teachers union. And under their contract, the basic obligation and requirements that I need to follow is that our teachers need to come in one day before the students arrive at minimum, that there has to be parent conferences for our K-6 staff in the schedule. The last 3 days for our elementary students need to be half days if we don't have weather emergencies that require us to have full days. And that the teachers cannot work more than 185 days. And so when you build the calendar, you build the calendar with 185 days so that you can have 5 snow days so that students are in attendance for 180 days. And then you have to look at student attendance patterns and when can we anticipate that many students would be off from school because of family commitments. So for example, it doesn't make sense to have students in the Friday after Thanksgiving because many students travel, so that's always a day off. So that's the thinking that goes into the calendar development process. And so if you go online, and we'll put this on the homepage tomorrow, you can see the first draft of this calendar. And the reason I say it's a draft is because we like to put it out in front of the public and then give them the opportunity to comment on it before we finalize it, which happens either in the first or second meeting in January. And I also want to share with you that our liaison to the state education department is sharing with us that while right now the last day of school in next year's calendar is noted as Friday, June 27th, they are considering changing it to June 26th, and I don't have a final decision on that, which would impact our calendar as well. So if you would like to look at our calendar online and send us feedback, please do so before January 5th so that I can look at it prior to presenting the next round of calendar for the board's consideration. That's how the calendar is developed. Okay, so then on the agenda tonight is a recommendation to adopt the new extracurricular transportation language, which allows us to permit children to go home with their parents and then with parents people that our parents designate as transportation providers when students are extracurricular activities, with a different process in place so that we're able to manage it a little bit better moving forward, since we have many teams that have a lot of students who are participating in them, which is great, but it's becoming a problem for us to manage the release process. So we changed some of our language. This is your third review of this policy. We haven't received any feedback, so if the board moves forward and approves it, then we will start communicating, particularly with their athletic families, about how we're going to do this moving forward. But it'll address a need that have been identified by our coaching staff so that they can be tighter with the release process based on the numbers of students that are participating in our events. All right, so now Adam's going to talk about 2 CSF grants on the agenda this evening.
Thank you. So our friends at the CSF have generously donated 2 grants that were proposed by teachers. The first one is a first grade teacher, Erica Miranda at Roaring Brook, and she put in a grant for some flexible seating to create a small classroom library in her classroom. So we appreciate that. You'll see that on your agenda as 5.2. And then the next one is 5.3. Dr. DeMarie, who's a high school science teacher, has put in a grant for some tools to help maintain the pollinator garden so he can work with some students. We have a small pollinator garden back in the back of Greeley that's used as part of our science curriculum. And so Chappaqua School Foundation is generously supporting the purchase of some tools so the students can help him maintain that as part of some coursework and also some club work. So thanks to the CSF for those 2.
And now we're going to move over to Josh, who has the next 3 slides. So do you want to talk about the piano donation?
Sure. Neil Walker, our chorus teacher, had been in touch with a community member who is looking to donate their 1925 baby grand piano, which apparently this is the piano you want, according to Neil and the family. And this piano has been at the Metropolitan Opera. It's been well maintained, and the condition of the piano would be incredible for our chorus classes. So that's on your agenda for your approval. The next thing on this on this slide is a resolution about the auditorium steam pipe. You notice it's a little cooler in here and the bathrooms are very warm right now. That's because the steam pipe that's going from the main entrance over here to this wing of the building is leaking steam and we need to repair it. We haven't had too many cold days, but if we did, we would have to make some shifts. So over this break, the pipe is going to be replaced and then it goes under the patio that's outside of here, the outdoor patio, and that's going to be completed by March 1st, by the time that the weather gets warm. So they're going to work through to get that done as quickly as possible. And the next slide is a contract with an independent electric bus consultant. So as we've been researching electrification of our bus fleet, the more we learn, the more variables there are, such as your entire bus routing changes because of the way battery life works going up and down hills versus going around the neighborhood. So your entire routing structure changes. The power requirements, whether it's at a bus depot, at our schools, needs an extensive study to determine where we can charge buses. Even the weather dependent and the battery charges is another variable, along with financing of the buses, the infrastructure, and the servicing of that. And as we've been researching, lots of organizations and companies that are trying to sell buses, try to sell services, it became really clear that we need someone who is completely independent of any of these companies to help advise us along the way through at least the first 1 to 3 years of this process. And this is including advising us on the numerous grants that are available via NYSERDA and the EPA. So they're going to start their work right away in helping us with immediate grant writing and evaluating what our process will look like to electrify our entire bus fleet with Seth and Chappaqua Transportation as our partner in that process.
Okay, so before we end the superintendent's report, I do want to reiterate, we are having a meeting next Wednesday at 9 a.m. here in the Academic Commons that will be open to the public. There are a number of contracts that need to be in place to support some of the work that we need to do moving forward on based on our Middle East update. And so the board will be meeting to review those contracts as well as hear recommendations from our faculty and the work that Adam and Mary and Sandy do alongside them after our feedback process with our students and parents have completed. So I do want to reiterate that there is a meeting that's going to be taking place next week on Wednesday, and then we will send an update out to the community in our what's happening about some of the decisions that are made and some of the people that we'll be working with moving forward based on us securing some professionals to help us with with our work. And so I do want to congratulate our performing arts department. We've had a number of concerts already, and we are finishing our concert series this week and next week. And I've had an opportunity to see many of our students perform, and so it's always a pleasure to be able to see their work, their culmination of their work from the fall semester. And then I just want to wish our families on behalf of the school district a healthy and happy holiday break. And so thank you. That is the end of the superintendent's update.